Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about being a young software developer. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, "Hi Frederick, I am 70 years old. I'm a 70-year-old software developer and founder of my own company. Props, dude. Cool. That is very impressive. How would a professional software engineer working for the company view me? How different would I be treated differently if I was, say, 31 years old?" Yes, yes, you would. Well, it depends a little bit. It depends a little bit on the person we're talking about now, but yes, you would be treated differently, and you would be different. So something that you should be aware of is that this idea that the startups and the Silicon Valley people and so forth are selling to you, that the coolest and the trendiest and best managers or like the founders of the coolest companies and so forth, they're all 12 years old and they're all geniuses. It's absolute bullshit. The numbers are actually showing that the average successful founder in the startup world is around 40 years old, and there are more people who have successful businesses who are 50 than there are people who have successful businesses that are 25. And there is a reason to that. The reason isn't because you can't make a success out of yourself when you're very young. The reason is because you haven't seen the world. You are not personally matured as much as you haven't seen. You don't have experience. You don't have life experience. You don't have business experience. You have nothing. You're a you're a blank canvas, if that makes sense. You have a lot of potential. You have a lot of energy and drive and motivation, and that is the thing that especially the older companies, that's what they really want to work with these days, because innovation and pushing things and being hungry, these are good things. But experience is also a very important factor, because you cannot survive on hunger alone. You need to produce results. And that is the hardest part about having youth, because you have no track record. You're discovering everything from the get-go. That is, of course, just take this for what it is, guys. You can be a 31-year-old who has no life experience, who has kind of just, yeah, I don't know, you've been living in your parents' basements without ever having a job or whatever, like you've never done any real living, and you won't be able to do anything. It doesn't matter if you're 31 or you're 7, or if you're 50. Like, you can still, of course, be at the same personal maturity level. And if you ask, if you ask my girlfriend, I'm probably still 15 years old many times in personal maturity. Don't tell her that I said that, but it really depends. In the age thing is a factor. The thing that is going to be a factor for you, and the thing that you should be aware of, is that if you start your own company, I would say that it's extremely impressive that you do this so early on, but you have to understand that you're going to learn things, a lot of things. You're going to get a lot of things wrong. You're you're going to fuck up a lot, and that is okay. That is part of the journey. It's this. I mean, even if you were to hire me, if I were to take a job working for you as a 17-year-old founder, I would understand what I was getting myself into. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's not always the case. There's a lot of people who might have prejudices against you. When I was 19, I taught martial arts as I went on like courses and had held workshops and stuff like that. And the number one problem I usually had was to deal with people who were in their 40s and their 50s, who looked at me as some little squirt who didn't know a shit about anything. And I was supposed to teach this middle-aged guy who was kind of burly how to defend himself. He thought that was hilarious, because he thought that, he looked at my age and thought, well, what does this little kid have to teach me? And in my scenario, at the time, at the very least, I had the maturity, or like the soft skills to deal with that situation by explaining that, well, if to kind of be the diplomat and explain that, well, if we were here to learn about your profession, because I usually worked with medical staffs and people working for the government and so forth, we would look to you to show us how to do these things because you have a lot of experience in this area. But right now, like today, the discussion is around self-defense and martial arts and security and things like that, which is something that I've spent quite a few years doing. And I think that even though I might be younger and not have your understanding of what you do, I think that I have an understanding of things that may be new to you, and try to kind of like try to bridge it that way, to be a bit like, I'm not saying mature, but to try to make people understand that your age is less relevant if we're talking about a very concrete matter. Now, for you as a founder, on the other hand, or as a business owner, as I was saying, if you're dealing with a 31-year-old, or it's usually indicated that you have been doing a little bit more living. It is something where some people will take you more seriously because you're older, and they will look at you as, well, if you're too young and inexperienced, they're going to look down on you. They might look down on you. It's actually very common that might happen, where they might think that it's kind of weird that you're so young. Some people will and some people won't, but that's part of your journey now. It's part of your learning experience, because I can promise you, if you can muscle through the fact and kind of, as I was saying, like what I did with my martial arts courses, if you can find a way to move past that, to get past the fact that you're so young, you will get so much farther than you could possibly imagine, because you are doing something now that I have to give you. It's really impressive. You should have props from that. If nobody else has told you this, if your parents haven't told you or friends haven't told you, I want to be the first person to tell you, you are doing something very impressive. It's really cool that you're trying this out, and I hope that it goes really well for you. So look at this as the same thing as going through school or going and learning how to become a programmer. You're going to learn so many things here, and along the way you might find that, yes, sure, if you were 31 years old or you were 40, you might be treated with more respect. But remember, that age respect thing, it's really us humans trying to just say that, well, if you're 31 years old, then I expect you to be at a certain maturity level, and if you're 40, you should be at another experience level or at maturity level. And the worst thing that you can have is that you're 30 or 40 or something like that, and you're still at a maturity level or a skill level or something like that, where people kind of go, wow, is this as far as you have gotten? Like, an example would be, let's say that you've had your mother do everything for you. You've been a mama's boy or mama's girl for your entire life, and you've never done anything yourself, and then you're in your 40s and people are like, isn't it embarrassing to be this this dependent, or like to not have done any type of living, and like it almost gets a little bit embarrassing. And for you, sure, right now you're 17 years old and you might be judged because you're too young, or you might have some issues with some people who judge you for that. But imagine where you're going to be when you're 30, because you have done more living now than the average person who is in their 30s. You will get further. I promise you, by the time that you're 25, my friend, you're going to be have a maturity level that is vastly higher than someone who's in their 30s, maybe even in their 40s, because you are now living in a way that is way above the curve of where most people would be in your age, and you should be very proud over the fact that you've taken this step, and I hope that it goes really well for you. So what I want you to take away from this is that, yes, if you're 70 years old and you're running your own company, you might find that people, like if you try to hire someone like an experienced developer or so forth, try to, like, honest to God, like try here to figure out a way to bridge the age things, because just because you're 70 years old doesn't mean that if you try to hire your second developer, that they're going to give you a problem or something like that. Sure, you might be treated differently if you were in your 30s, and you might find that that's the same thing if you start talking to customers, like that they feel that it's kind of weird that you're so young. But remember, if you can bridge that, you're going to be so ahead of the curve that you can't even possibly imagine it. You have so many possibilities going forward by just taking this step. And I promise you, even if you hire someone who's older than you, you can actually learn from that. Look at all of this as a learning experience and try to do your best, because along the way, I promise you, you're going to make mistakes, but those mistakes are also going to grow you as a person, and you're going to learn so many things that is going to help you the next time around. So do the thing that I think that that everybody should do whenever they try something. Try it out, figure out what's working and what's not working, fail, and then repeat. Try it again and continue that process. And I promise you, you're going to see that you're actually going to succeed more and more, and your maturity level is going to skyrocket. And by the time, I promise you, by the time you're 25, if you continue this process, you're going to be able to hold your own in a conversation with somebody who's 50. I promise you that's going to happen. Have a great day.